Much to the delight of fantasy gamers, 2024 was a running back renaissance. Now it's time to see where they fall in 2025. We're talking running back rankings. Let's get it. What's up, fantasy people? You are back with the True North Fantasy Pod. We're here to inform, empower, and entertain you towards making sound fantasy decisions. I am Trav, hosting West Coastin' as usual from beautiful Victoria, British Columbia. And of course, my paisan, the cannoli kid, one Frank Amaranti out east. Big win for the Blue Jays today, Frank, and we're following that up with a banger True North Fantasy Pod episode. Good to see you, brother.
Always great to see you. Good win for the Jays. Hopefully they make a splash at the trade deadline, which is tomorrow. But we got to get into these running backs. My position of priority. I'm rolling with what we saw last year, which we'll get into, and that's running back are back to being the focal point.
They are so back. And also tomorrow, Frank, along with that MLB trade deadline, we're recording this on Wednesday afternoon, is the NFL Hall of Fame game, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, I believe. It kicks off. Can't even remember off the top of my head the teams, but it doesn't matter because it just means that football is starting, and we're so excited about that. Make sure that you go get dialed in with the True North YouTube channel because we're going to be putting weekly content out throughout the season to get you ready for your leagues, to get you winning week to week. We're going to do all of that for you. So subscribe to that YouTube channel and follow us on your favorite audio platforms. And of course, you can find us on social media. All that stuff is in the episode description. But Frank, today we are going to talk about our running back rankings. Last week, we had 2 episodes in our new format on the show, going through our quarterback rankings. This week, we're going to do it a little bit differently, being that we're going for shorter episodes to make it more digestible for the people. We're not going to go through our running back rankings name by name by name because A, I think for running backs, we probably would want to go deeper than top 24 as we did with the quarterbacks, and B, because we just don't necessarily have that kind of time. So I think it's going to be a fun little format, Frank. We will still lay out some of our rankings. We will have some stuff on screen, and we will be posting some of that stuff on our Substack when our rankings are finalized. So stay tuned for all of it. But yeah, let's talk about this episode here, Frank, because I think to set the stage a little bit, obviously, running back had a great season last year. We saw guys like Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry have those resurgences on new teams, also being guys who didn't catch a ton of passes and still being in that upper echelon was something of note. We had some young guys, some Canadians like Chuba Hubbard and Chase Brown bring their names into that kind of realm. And so I think there's some new faces, and we saw a lot of versatile production in 2024. So I think you kind of already maybe alluded to some of it, but what was kind of a big takeaway for you as you were doing the rankings here, Frank, for the running backs, and maybe what surprised you in that?
Well, one thing that surprised me is that Derrick Henry still goes in the second round. I mean, hey, I've been in that group that has faded Derrick Henry, but I can't do it anymore. It's such a perfect situation with the Ravens playing next to Lamar Jackson. Great scheme. Henry just rushed for he did eclipse 2,000 yards, right? Or he was close.
Saquon did. He was a little bit
close. He was really close, yeah. I mean, I know he's old now, but he just hasn't shown any signs of decline, Henry, and it's just an ideal situation. So I think it's hard for me not to see him as a first rounder. So I've been in a lot of best balls because in a lot of the formats, I've been doing it on drafters, but even on on underdog, Henry's always routinely available early second round, and I just can't stop picking him. And I ranked him RB6 in these rankings, which is slightly above consensus RB7. But I'm willing to take him in the top 10 picks because it's just such a perfect situation.
Yeah, that's a good one there. And I think to your point, 1,921 rushing yards last season, 16 touchdowns. I think those touchdowns are what's kept him going because in Tennessee, that offense got really bad towards the end. And so he was still producing really well, but I mean, his offense kind of capped his touchdown upside. And this offense with the Ravens is phenomenal and allows him to get everything that he wants and more. So that's a really good take there. I think for me, one of the surprises was how high I have some of these rookies. Obviously, we had a big rookie class and some steam behind them as one of the better rookie classes we've seen for running backs in a while. And so I was not necessarily surprised by how many names I saw there, but I thought it was kind of interesting to see that we might see kind of a big shift in the names that are here, as well as the types of upside that we could see if these guys are able to cement themselves long term. We could have a really good crop of like 5 or 6 bell cow running backs that just came out this year. So going to be some fun conversation, Frank. They are back in fantasy though, and let's talk about some of those guys that are back, those elite running back ones. We'll focus kind of on the top 5 here, Frank, but let's talk about who our running back 1 is for the 2025 season. I'll throw it to you to go first, and then I will rebut with mine.
For me, it's Bijan Robinson. He's got youth on his side. Obviously, he's an elite prospect. He's produced at a high level in each of his 2 seasons. The focal point of the Falcons' offense, Bijan is. Bijan makes plays in the passing game. He had 14 rushing touchdowns, ranked 2nd in red zone carries. So here you have a bell cow who gets heavy usage in the receiving game, heavy usage in the red zone. He's shifty, he's explosive, he's everything you want. RB1.
I like it. I like it. And I mean, we're splitting hairs with this, right? You can't really argue anybody having any of the top 3 or 4 guys as their running back 1. The only reason I don't have Bijan as mine is just because of that switch to Michael Penix. They're going to be using some more 3 wide receiver sets, I think, with Zach Robinson and him coming in there. I'm just not sure if Michael Penix is going to target the running back as much as Bijan has been targeted. I think a lot of that's going to be baked into the offense, and you don't get a Bijan Robinson if you're not going to target him. But I know that Michael Penix in college, he had that air out style where he loved winging it down the field to his wide receivers. So I wonder if there is some of that could impact the targets for Bijan. And that's the reason why I have a guy like Saquon Barkley as my running back 1 for 2025, is because he doesn't need all of that receiving work to be able to have that running back 1 production. His rushing stuff is going to do that for him. And like in Dynasty, I would probably have Bijan over Saquon, but I think the fact that we saw all that touchdown upside for Saquon alongside Jalen Hurts still getting double-digit rushing touchdowns near the goal line, I think was great. He made up for that in big plays. Saquon Barkley, it's kind of crazy, 345 attempts. And his explosive run rate, Frank, was 7.2%, which is just astronomical, especially with that many carries. 4th best for all running backs with 100 carries, and he had 345. The funnest stat about that is that accounted for 835 of his rushing yards, just explosive plays, and only 23 running backs in the entire NFL had more than 835 rushing yards. And so what he does on big plays can easily supplement what he doesn't get in the passing game, only 33 receptions last year. So I'm still sticking with Saquon. And notice I didn't wear my Eagles hat today because I didn't want any homer takes to be called on this, Frank. But I think he's still the running back 1 because that volume and that touchdown upside with big plays is incredible.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, you're splitting hairs with the top 3 elite tier with Bijan, Barkley, and Gibbs. What I love about Barkley, about Saquon, is some best balls now he falls as late as I got him at 6 in drafters. Like, the receiver obsession continues. So you got to love the opportunity to get Saquon there. So I won't push back too much on that take.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll lay out the rest of my top 5, Frank, and maybe we can compare a little bit. So I have Bijan as my running back 2. Love everything you said. Do love Zach Robinson's offense for a running back. And so, like I said, this was just kind of splitting hairs. Ashton Jeanty is my running back 3 for 2025. Might be a little bit steamy, but I don't think too much because I think, this offense is going to run around or revolve around Bowers, Jacoby Myers, and Ashton Jeanty. And so I think he's probably the 3rd leading target getter on that team. There are some whispers about Dante Thornton Jr., but I don't think he's going to be a volume type receiver. And I think Ashton Jeanty is going to have the whole pie on a team with Pete Carroll, who wants to jam the ball down the defense's throat, and an offensive coordinator in Chip Kelly that can put their running back in really, really positive positions. Like, we saw some really good seasons out of those Eagles backs when Chip Kelly was there, like DeMarco Murray. I think he was there for the Ajayi. No, maybe not the Ajayi year, but anyway, I think they can get it done. And Jeanty is my running back 3. Christian McCaffrey coming off that injury. I think, it's hard to predict injury, and I know that it's a bit scary, but it looks like he's healthy. It looks like he's getting all that work, and we saw what he did before. Number 5 is Jahmyr Gibbs. I love Jahmyr Gibbs, and this was maybe a little bit of a surprise for me too, Frank, is that when it all came out in the wash that he was back at 5, because previously I might have had him at 4 or 3, but I think he comes in at 5 just with that shift in offense and Ben Johnson going away. I don't think he's going to lose too much on the split with David Montgomery, but I do wonder if the offense is going to lose a little bit of efficiency not having a guy like Ben Johnson there. So Bijan, Genty, McCaffrey, and Gibbs round out my top 5 after Saquon. Frank, how does yours look?
So mine has the same 5 players, just in a different order. So I said Bijan 1. I actually have Gibbs at 2. We
Sick.
saw what Gibbs could do last year. Like, his production down the stretch was just astronomical. He's been highly efficient. Uh, we could see Gibbs get a little more involved in the passing game now. There's been talk of that throughout camp. Gibbs came out of the draft like as an elite receiving back, but he's only topped out at 52 catches. I'd be willing to bet that he sets a career high there. And I do feel like David Montgomery with the new play caller will get less usage, and the team will zero in on their most explosive most explosive players, and that's Gibbs. So
Yep.
I think he'll get more usage with that, and Montgomery will slowly have more of a diminished role. Not to say a non-factor, just less than
Yep.
what he usually has. 3, I got Barkley, and the only reason I have Barkley at 3 behind Gibbs and Bijan is because Barkley had a crazy workload last year, over 400 touches. So I have to bake in slight risk for that. Doesn't mean I'm fading Barkley. I learned that lesson, but I still have to consider it. 4, I got Christian McCaffrey, back healthy. Niners really need him. Ayuk hurt, Jennings banged up, Pearsall, a question mark. Debo not with the team. So McCaffrey's going to get fed, and it wouldn't surprise me if McCaffrey was RB1 overall, but I can't rank him there because we have to knock him a little bit for last season and the injury concerns. And then 5, I share your sentiments with Ashton Genty. I'm bullish. I'm excited. I think he'll be the focal point of that Raiders offense. I think they'll like to run the ball, and he can catch passes out of the backfield. He's a prospect on par with Bijan, Barkley, and Zeke. So you got to love it. I think he has a big year too.
100%. So we kind of alluded to it there, Frank, and so there might be a bit of a hint as to who our selections might be. But of those top 5 guys, which guy scares you the most and why?
Well, I guess it would be the no-brainer, which scares me the most, and that's McCaffrey, just because of his injury history.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to take McCaffrey at his ADP, which is 7.4 on Underdog. No problems with it. It just, you're gonna click it, but then you're gonna just be like, hopefully he stays healthy. Not to say I'm lower on him because I'm totally with it, but if I have to pick one of the 5, he would be the scariest, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. In my notes here, I have McCaffrey OBS because it's very obvious that he's a scary option at top 5. I think Saquon is a little bit sketchy
Yeah.
too, just for that workload that you were talking about there, potential breakdown. We've seen it happen with him before, and so a little bit of fear there, but got to stick with my man. My
I want
fear is at
to
the
add
top of the list, Frank.
I wanted to say one quick thing. I think the best value out of these 5 right now is Genty, because on Underdog especially, Genty's fallen to pick 12, and I just think that's too low. I'd have Genty as high as 8th overall. Bell cow, elite prospect, good situation, plays indoors.
Yeah.
I love it. So I'd say Genty's a great value right now where he goes in drafts.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think some of this, Frank, kind of tells me that we're a bit aligned on our philosophy that running back is still the sexiest position in fantasy football, and that having a good stable of running backs can really help you towards the championship. I love wide receivers too. We do start 3 wide receivers in a lot of our leagues, but I think having really strong running backs especially makes you feel a lot better going into the season, and being able to maybe set and forget your running back 2 alongside a good running back 1 makes a world of difference. So we're going to go into the rest of our top 12 here, Frank, touch on some surprises, maybe some dark horse running back 1 overall candidates. So why don't you bring us from 6 through 12 in your rankings?
Okay, at 6, Derrick Henry, like I said, love him. I'd pick him as high as 10 overall. You get him early second round. I've been drafting Henry quite often. I mean, the only argument against him could be age, but I feel like the situation mitigates that risk because it's just such a perfect situation in Baltimore. RB7, Devon Achane, elite receiving ability, explosive runner. I saw this. I forgot who tweeted this, but it was a good point. If the Dolphins offense stays broken, you're going to likely see HN continue to get spammed with those check down looks. If the Dolphins offense gets back on track, you're going to likely see HN's efficiency return. So great pick with him there, as long as Tua stays healthy. I've moved this next player up a little bit. I'm going Chase Brown at RB8. Elite receiving upside, bell cow role. I'm not like the others who are worried that Chase Brown's going to have a slightly diminished role just because he was like a day 3 pick and all that. But I feel like the Bengals fully trust him. He works well with the Bengals' extremely pass heavy offense as a good receiver. They play hurry up, they check it down to him. I think we'll see a huge role from him once again. RB9, Bucky Irving. I think what we saw from Bucky Irving in the second half is here to stay. He's just a complete back. Like, he can do what White does in the receiving game, so what's the point of playing White, really? It's not, maybe Irving is not quite as good of a receiver, but Irving's still a good one.
Yeah.
And he's a much better runner, so he's going to be 9. RB10, Jonathan Taylor. I moved him down a couple spots just because, if Anthony Richardson wins the job, which I now think he will, I used to think Daniel Jones, I mean, that hurts Taylor's potential touchdown output because Richardson could take away touchdowns, hurts Taylor's receiving a little bit. So that's why I knocked down JT a little bit, although I still like him overall. It's just a slight downgrade. And then 11, Josh Jacobs. Well, I don't think he'll be as much of a workhorse as last year. He's still going to be the lead back, still a lot of volume there. I think the Packers will pass a little more, which is why I'm saying Jacobs less carries. And I do like Marshawn Lloyd as a late round pick. But the fact is, Jacobs is a proven producer who's proven to be able to, excel with heavy volume, and he's in a good offense. So can't put him lower here. Number 12 is a little polarizing. I know a lot will disagree with this. Number 12, I got James Cook. And it's just because I know he ran for what, like 14 touchdowns last year. That's going to go down, but it doesn't mean that he can't get 10 again. Like, that's a elite running game with a very good offensive line. Ever since Joe Brady has taken over, the Bills have really run the ball and they've been high scoring. And I think this is Cook's last year with the Bills, and they'll let him, they'll give him his dues. They'll let him get fed. And also, if Cook's touchdowns go down to 8, who's to say he can't get back going in the passing game, because he's a good receiver out of the backfield. We've seen him targeted on those wheel routes. So this is just a bet on a player who's in an elite offense, and he's shown a really high weekly ceiling. So think about James Cook's spike weeks that he's put up since Joe Brady has taken over as play caller. So even if he slightly disappoints you, season-long points per game, he still has that ability for that massive 30-plus point game, just because Allen could target him like on a wheel route and he can get a couple touchdowns. And the Bills' schedule is just one of the easiest in the NFL. Their win total is like 12.5, a little plus odds to the over, but still, like, they have a legit chance to be the 1 seed. They're going to be playing with the lead often, and Cook could, continue to produce. I think he will in his, what I believe will be Cook's final year with the Bills.
Nice, yeah. He had 4 games over 25 PPR points last year to kind of stamp some of that ceiling for him. Not in my top 12, though, Frank. And so I think that was an interesting list. I do have some of the same names, like my next 2 at 6 and 7, exactly the same. Derrick Henry, Devon Achane. I've come around on Devon Achane. I was previous, and I do think there is going to be a second running back involved, and maybe we'll talk about that guy a little bit later. But I can see it with Achane. It's like any of the Dolphins' potential outcomes serve him, basically. And so Devon Achane is back in that. And honestly, he could challenge for running back 1 overall as well for the season. Running back 8 for me, I thought was an interesting omission for you, and that was Breece Hall in New York. And I think we've talked about it a little bit on the show here, how some of his targets could still be safe despite Justin Fields being in there with kind of the check down percentage we saw from Fields last season. Don't necessarily know if that's a Fields thing or the offense that he was in thing, but in due time we will find out. And I think Breece Hall is going to be a beneficiary of that. I also think that Justin Fields' presence is going to be way better for Breece Hall in the run game. We talk about on the on the old days of the True North pod, Ty used to talk about the Jackson 5 rule, that states that any running back in the same backfield as Lamar Jackson is bound to average 5+ yards per carry. I'm not saying that rule fully applies here with Justin Fields and Breece Hall, but I think we're pretty close to it. And so I am very, very excited about Breece Hall, especially because the cost on him is like, second, third round in some areas. And I think that's just a smash for a guy who should be the bell cow there. Number 9 for me, also not in your list, Frank, and I'm probably a little bit ahead of consensus. I think I was looking at ECR and all of the rankers. There's 75 people that have published their half PPR redraft rankings that we're doing here, and I am tied for the highest on one Kenneth Walker at running back 9. I think the stars are going to align for him with Clint Kubiak here. I think he's going to get some target work. I think he's going to be in a really effective scheme for him. And if anyone's been listening to the Dynasty Underground show, my co-host Joe Kubatakis has been staunch in saying that this scheme is not a great one for Zach Charbonnet. And so I think that all bodes well for Kenneth Walker to be a running back 1. Jonathan Taylor, exact same spot at running back 10 for me. Chase Brown at running back 11, but I think I'm going to reevaluate and potentially move him up a little bit. Everything you said, I'm in the same boat. And so for me, that just tells me that maybe I need to have a look at this. I think it's maybe just less history of that big time production versus some of these guys ahead of him. But that's not always the greatest data point to hang your hat on just for any of our listeners. So make sure you reevaluate those seasons and don't just kind of lock into historical performance. And running back 12 for me is Kyren Williams. And also one I might have to look at as well, because if you had listened to my content earlier in the offseason, you would be blown away with me having Kyren as the running back 12. But it's also a situation like where we've seen Sean McVay do this time and time again, where he brings in that younger running back, and Kyren Williams still keeps the job. The contract year could be a big difference for Kyren Williams, being that he might be out the door and they might want to see what Jarquez Hunter and Blake Corum are going to do this season. So maybe they get a little bit more work than the backups got last year. But I think there's targets there. This offense is looking in a really good position with Stafford, Nakua, and Adams. Also love me some Terrence Ferguson that was added, as well as Jarquez Hunter. But Kyren Williams, I think, is going to stay in that realm. Like, I've been burned by it, basically, Frank, by ranking him way too low, and he's finishing as like a top 7 running back the last couple of years. I'm not going to put him in that top 7, but I am going to show a little bit of that respect by putting him in the back end of my top 12. So any of those ones big surprises for you there, Frank?
Yeah, so I'm going to mention a couple that I agree with and one that I disagree. So I agree with you being high on Walker. You're more high on Walker than I am, but I'm still above consensus on Walker at RB13. At Underdog, he goes RB16, and he's been rising. And it's just for what you said. I think Walker is just a perfect scheme fit in Clint Kubiak's, running scheme. Walker's an explosive runner. I think last year the Seahawks running game was broken, which is why Walker was much less efficient, and which is why Walker got more checkdowns, because I feel like the Seahawks tried to do those little short passes to compensate for their broken running game. I don't think that'll be the case this year, but I think we'll see those big plays from Kenneth Walker. So I'm with you in that he's someone I want to target. I disagree with Breece Hall. I have him RB14. It's because I love the talent, and I know Justin Fields will help with efficiency. And I know Justin Fields' check down rate is actually a lot higher than you would think, like you mentioned to me weeks ago in one of our earlier episodes. But fact is, there'll still be a lot more run heavy, so less passing means less receiving upside. And I feel like the Lions' new coaching staff with Aaron Glenn want to put a committee in place like they had with the Lions, with Gibbs and Montgomery. I think Braylon Allen, who's turning heads in camp, not to say like he's going to make this a 50-50 deal, but he could take away some touchdowns and some red zone opportunities. I think it could be like a 60-40 type of look. And, even though we like Justin Fields in fantasy, if we have to rank the offenses, the highest scoring offenses this year, where would you put the Jets? Have to
Pretty
be
low.
bottom third, I would say.
Pretty low.
Maybe you could even see it being like in the 25s.
Yeah.
So those are concerns I have there with Breece Hall. I have him RB14. It's not like I'm way low on him. It's just a lot lower than where you are at RB8. And Kyren Williams, I'm with you that like I gotta believe it now. For me, I mean, I gotta see it for me to believe it that Sean McVay will start using a young guy and get him
Yeah.
involved like Jarquez Hunter. Although I do like Hunter as a late round stash, Kyron's probably still gonna have the heavy workload. With that said, I have him RB15. Not gonna be taking him.
No.
I'm just not gonna take
Yeah.
a heavy stand in fading Kyron. I'll be looking at receivers then, because I like to take two running backs in the first 3 rounds. So when it's time for Kyron, I usually have like a,
Yeah.
Genty and Henry or a Genty and Brown or
Yeah.
something like that. So I don't end up getting him. So I have him RB 15. But other than that, pretty solid list there. And yeah, like that's a section from 12, I would say, to 15, 16, even 12 to 19, where it gets like variable. Like it's hard to have a
Yeah.
set ranking there.
There's a lot of compression, right? Because yeah, as I'm looking at mine, I could go back to like my running back, like you said, 18, and there could be a case made for that guy to be in the top 12. And so, interesting stuff there, yeah. And I think a couple scary options in there as well, like Breece Hall. I'm not even mad at your stance on that, and we're going to talk about our kind of back of the top 24 rankings in a second. But his range is so wide, right? And Braylon Allen did look pretty good last year. Even Isaiah Davis looked pretty good last year. So I see what you're saying there, a little bit of scariness in Breece Hall with that range. And yeah, just this is the year. This is the year where Kyron Williams is going to burn us a third time, but the wrong way. You know what I mean? And we finally are like,
Yeah.
and so I'm wondering, like, is that the process that I want to take into account when I'm ranking him? Just that, like, wait and see, you know what I mean? Because it feels like what that's going to create is that you're going to be late on the rookies, or you're going to miss out on the younger guys that are going to potentially take some of that work. So maybe that's more of
You
a
also could
so.
you also could take the angle that Matthew Stafford's banged up. What if he misses time? Obviously that hurts Kyron, makes the offense worse, less scoring opportunities. So that's another X on Kyron's profile.
Totally. Totally. Okay, so let's look at these running back twos as they would be ranked, Frank. Running back 13 through 24. We obviously just mentioned that there is a lot of compression here, so take these rankings for what you will. And honestly, when you're looking at people's rankings through like the top 20, there's not really any merit to being mad or angry about any of them unless there's anything like super off the wall, because these guys are all pretty close, and fantasy is a matter of opinion. So this is the part where we inform you and empower you to make your own sound fantasy football decisions. So make sure that you're using your own kind of insight and opinions and things that matter to you alongside all of this stuff that we're giving you here, because that's the best way to get those W's and continue having fun doing it. So these guys after running back 12, Frank, like as I look through mine, I'll just kind of knock off some of the names that you mentioned. I have Bucky Irving as my running back 13. I actually do think Rachaad White is going to get a little bit of that pie. Not a ton of it, maybe like 40% tops, but I think that 40% does potentially limit what Bucky could do across a full season. I also wonder whether they want to give Bucky that full end of season workload that he got throughout an entire NFL season with some of the size stuff and maybe his ability to hold up being an undersized running back. But I mean, all of that is speculation. Bucky is still a really dope running back. So it's kind of hurt me to be fading him a little bit just on the cost. But I do think it's jumped the shark just a touch. Josh Jacobs is my 14, so not far off of you. Just proven. My number 15, Frank, is Alvin Kamara. I think he has a bunch of dump offs from these scared young quarterbacks that are going to be behind center. And last year we showed that he can take bell cow rushing volume as well and do something with that. So I think Alvin Kamara is a really good value as well. James Cook is at my 16. And that's the last guy that you mentioned in your top 12 that I've got. I think James Cook, I think that touchdown, the potential touchdown regression is going to impact him quite a bit. I think he's still going to get some good rushing volume, but if those touchdowns dip, I think it's going to be a big hit to his final finish, albeit still probably being a viable running back too for rosters. So those are some of the guys that I had in mind. Frank, I think you mentioned some of yours. So why don't you give me a couple more notable names out of your top 24 that you think might be surprises? And for any of our listeners, we will be posting these full rankings and stuff. So don't worry that we're not going through every single name.
Yeah. Before I say those names, I want to say a couple of things. One, when the listener is reading the rankings, I think that's why I like to put some stands where I'm like way ahead of like significantly ahead of consensus, just to reflect who I'm really targeting at that group. So that's a good way to read rankings. And second, Chase Brown and Bucky Irving, two very small sample, day 2 or 3 running backs, day 3 running backs who came on at the end. I totally get if you're worried like that, like if they have a really limited sample of elite production. But the counter to it is that Like if they did another year of what they just did, they'd be like what cemented late first rounders. So you're getting them like mid to late second. So it's all about your risk tolerance and willing to, if you want to lean into it and you think, hey, I think it's going to be the same, and then I'm getting basically a cemented RB1 and he has receiving upside in the second round. It just depends the strategy you want to take. So I just wanted to mention that it's worth noting. But uh, our running backs 13 to 24. A couple notes I'll say. One guy you didn't mention, Omarion Hampton, who I'm below consensus on at RB16. He's moved up to RB14. I get it. Najee has the eye issue, and we don't know when he'll come back, but I'm not ready to think that's going to make Harris miss any time during the season. Like, we're still early. It's July 30th. And, Greg Roman offenses, they don't really target the running back. I know there was Lamar Jackson, obviously, with him, and there was Colin Kaepernick, but there was also Alex Smith for a bit. And, I just think that, Hampton's got a lot of talent, but I do believe the Chargers will still mix in Najee Harris. And now Hampton goes like at the end of the third round. I can get receivers I like Jackson Smith and Jigba. I could get an elite quarterback like Jaden Daniels, an elite tight end like George Kittle. So it's just getting rich for me. I know he's a round one talent. He's got prospect pedigree, but like I said, I'm still hopeful with Najee and with the Chargers. And then another that I could mention at RB18, just slightly above consensus, is the guy who's undervalued every year. And hey, I've undervalued him in the past too. This is me again learning my lesson. It's James Conner,
I knew that.
RB18. The Cardinals are still going to feed James Conner the ball. The Cardinals under Jonathan Gannon are really more like us fantasy players want them to be this flashy offense, Kyler running wild, chucking it to Harrison, throwing it to McBride, shootouts, all Cardinals stacks. But that's not what the Cardinals are trying to be. They're trying to be run the football, protect the ball, play good defense, feed McBride and Harrison here and there, but not like this pinball type of shootout team.
Mhm.
And they're going to continue to do that. James Conner as the workhorse. They've even said it. If you look at Coach Speak Index, great account, there was an interview where they said they're still going to feed James Conner. So you can get him outside of almost at the end of the fifth round. If you wait on RB2, it's a nice pick. Should still have a lot of touchdowns. Obviously, he's getting older. There's injury concerns, but good value at his price.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. He's my running back 18 as well. I think same spot as you. Yeah. You said 18?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at that. Look at that. He's kind of that back cutoff of those guys that I could justify as a potential running back one, right? So, yeah, I think that was good. Omarion, I have him quite a bit lower than you. I have him as my running back 23, and I have Najee just behind at 25, which to me indicates more of like a 50-50 split. I think Najee's injury is interesting, but I'm still just kind of waiting and seeing how that impacts his start to the season. And I think we're not going to see the full Omari until later in the season. So as I think about, you know, seasonal finish, I think he might just have a little tough sledding with Najee there for the first little while. Okay, I was talking about some of those rookies, Frank. I got Caleb Johnson at 20. I've got Omarion at 23, and I've got Quinshon Judkins at 24. I know you weren't the highest on Judkins necessarily. I am still kind of waiting and seeing. This is me dropping him from running back 16 to 24 with that news, and so that should tell you just how high on Quinshon Judkins I am. And so if he comes out not a huge suspension, maybe a couple games or something, I'd probably keep him in this running back 24 range because I think they drafted him to be the bell cow. And when he gets back in there, he is going to be the bell cow for this team. So really shitty start to a career for Quinshon Judkins. Terrible, terrible human being behavior that he has displayed. And so we got to kind of keep that aside when we evaluate, obviously. But I think Quinshon could surprise a little bit once he gets in there. Last night, Frank, tell me what you think about this. Jackson Joe on the Dino Show, they said that they're moving Scadabo over Judkins in Dynasty because of this news. Is that hot takey to you, or what would you say?
Oh, damn. It's bold.
It's crazy.
But yeah, it's damn bold. But I kind of understand it in case I don't know if he gets suspended or falls out of favor. I don't really. It's a really murky situation now. That's why I have Judkins really low. I get it. I probably wouldn't do it,
Yeah,
but I understand it.
yeah.
And I've come around on Scatterbo. I think the Giants could use him like James Conner, and he gets all the touchdown equity, like main red zone ball carrier.
Yeah, I'm starting to.
I'm starting to feel like that. I know people are like, "Oh, it's because a couple practices," but no, it's just thinking about it more, and that he's more suited to be that red zone back, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah, he's
that's
showing really well in camp too. Really, really well in camp. And
yeah.
so,
And I
um,
wanted to add about Omari and Hampton. I'm actually lower on him usually. I just put Hampton here because I have to consider that maybe I'm wrong and that Najee will miss time with this, and it's maybe he'll be out long term, and then Hampton just takes off and never looks back. So I ranked him in a spot where I'm still slightly below, but not as low as I was earlier.
for sure. For sure. So there you go, Joe. I know Joe, my other co-host, listens to the show, Frank, and I can tell you that he enjoys listening to you because I think you
Oh, thank
confirm some of his priors from time to time, and you guys see the same on certain things. And so there you go, Joe. There's another one. You guys buried me on that one again, if you're listening. So yeah, that was good. One more guy I want to talk about who's in my top 24 is Travis Etienne. He's my running back 22 now. I'm getting more and more confident that he is going to be the 1A and getting like the 60% of a 60-40 split. And I think with Etienne's explosiveness and the offense with Liam Cohen, I think he can come back in and absolutely do that. I think and I wanted to mention this one because it's kind of a revisit of our conversation previously about this offense. And I think you were spot on, Frank, in that Bigsby is probably the best value in this offense. He can be gotten as I think the third option out of these guys. I haven't combed redraft ADP as much as I have Dynasty, but yeah, Tank Bigsby did a lot last year. He had, I think he had just less as far as explosive run rate than Devon Achane, and he had the same missed tackles forced per attempt as Devon Achane. So on a small sample size, which wasn't that small, he had like 168 carries last year. Tank Bigsby was dope. And so I'm fading the price on Bashal Tutin despite still really liking the player. And I think it just kind of bodes well for Travis Etienne as kind of the most clear guy who fits into this offense.
Oh yeah, so I want to add on that. First of
Yeah.
all, yeah, we were early in these episodes I've been saying about Bigsby, and I'm happy with how that's turned out so far. He looks good in camp. And earlier, a few weeks ago, I tweeted this for Liam Cohen. I think he's going to have Tank Bigsby as the early down ball carrier because Bigsby's a good runner. Like you said, he's explosive. And he's for right now at this stage, I think Bigsby is a better runner than ETN. So maybe ETN gets more of the receiving work, but Bigsby gets the red zone looks and more carries. So I actually have Bigsby ahead of ETN. I could see ETN eventually getting phased out and Bashal Tutin taking his role, but it wouldn't surprise me to see Tutin like irrelevant in fantasy for at least like the first half, even longer. Couple guys we didn't mention. I got Trevion Henderson at RB20, good receiver. I think he'll lose red zone carries to Ramondre Stevenson, so you got to keep that in mind. I got RJ Harvey at RB21. I tend to not get these guys either because, like I said, I've been RB heavy early in the draft, getting like I said, Henry and Chase Brown together, for example. And then if I did wait on RB2, maybe getting James Cook, because as you heard, I'm above consensus on him. So I end up missing on these rookie running backs because I'm going receiver at this stage or maybe tight end. But I do have Harvey RB21 because I have to acknowledge the upside with these rookies ahead of guys like DeAndre Swift, as much as Swift has a path to a good workload. So I got, yeah, Henderson 20, Harvey 21, Johnson 22. We don't know about Joe Mixon right now, so I had to move him down to RB 23. Earlier in the offseason, been hitting up Nick Chubb often. Before he was even signed, that was good. Then he goes to Houston. I was taking him more just in case, like, a bounce back. Now that Mixon, we know he's going to miss some time, maybe miss week one, maybe not, but the situation's muddled. Chubb's ADP is going higher, and I'm been looking to take shots on Woody Marks, the rookie, because he can make plays out of the backfield and there's a path. What if Chubb looks totally cooked and I'm wrong and then Marks takes over and it's just a totally pass heavy offense with Marks catching passes out of the backfield? That could be a good late round pick that we can mention as we get deeper down this list.
Totally. And I think even if Chubb is humming, if Joe Mixon's out, Woody Marks is liable to get some targets, right? Like Nick Chubb can be killing it on the ground, and they could still be bringing Woody Marks in on some of those third down situations to be a pass catcher because he's really, really good at it. I think it'll be interesting to see how Mixon's shakeout goes because just the vibes around that injury feel really murky. Like it could be, ready for week one, could be something that lingers throughout the season and we don't even see him. Kind of like there's vibes of Christian
Yeah,
McCaffrey's calf strain last year, kind of around Joe
yeah.
Mixon's injury right now. And it seems really, really weird. I have Joe Mixon and Nick Chubb just kind of reserved back in the mid 30s, and I'll probably move them up a little bit once it gets a little bit more clear. Because if I knew it was one of those guys, they would be a top 24 running back for me for sure. Kind of touching back on that rookie conversation that you had, I have Travion at 26. Quinchon obviously is inside that top 24. RJ Harvey right behind him at 27. I would have RJ Harvey a little bit higher, but I think J.K. Dobbins is going to have something to say about that workload at least early. And I think the same thing for Travion. I've been like a big Ramondre lover. I think he's going to get not only just goal line stuff, he's going to get more first and second down carries than we think he's going to get. And so I have Ramondre inside my top 30 just outside at 34, sorry, with Dobbins at 33. So I still have those rookies higher than the veterans in front of them. But I think those veterans are going to have something to say early. Some interesting ones here. I think, Frank, if we want to look and just give some of our favorite like sleepers or deep targets, I think that'd be a good way to start wrapping up. And then we'll talk about flag plants and kind of our big approach to the running back position, which we've talked a little bit about. So why don't you give me one of your kind of deeper flyers outside the top 24 that you're really excited to be drafting?
Before I do that, just
Yeah,
really quick, I want to mention Chuba Hubbard because we didn't get to him. I have him RB19. He's underrated. I think he'll still be the lead, like bell cow for the Panthers. Dowdle just a
yeah.
change of pace. So Hubbard's worth a look,
17
especially
for
because
me.
he's not sexy. He falls often. He's not flashy.
Yeah.
But to your question about potential sleepers, let's go through the list. One of them to stash on your bench, Tyjae Spears, because when Spears is at a lead role, he's produced. Like he could catch passes, he's elusive, he can make big plays. There's just a lottery ticket for you. Like, what if Pollard misses a game during the fantasy playoffs? They got the Saints at home one of those games. That could be a league winning performance in the fantasy football championship. So I like taking Spears. Um, you mentioned Bigsby. I like him most in the Jags backfield. But I will say that I do prefer Bigsby if you're in half PPR because Bigsby doesn't catch passes, or if you're in best ball because like you may not know when he's going to have that nice 15-point game that can just keep your running back room afloat. But I think he could have it, as the lead ball carrier for the Jags, and you could get Bigsby as like an RB5. So when you're in best ball, even in these large field tournaments, everyone loves to get these home run handcuffs at the back end of their RB room. But it's nice to even have someone who just still gets the ball because they can just. What if they go like 9 for 48 and a touchdown? Like, no, it's not a huge week, but it's gonna at least give you double digits. Someone who could produce if one of your higher ups have a dud, so it could help you with your advance rate. But anyway, one more late round pick that I can say here. I mentioned Woody Marks, so a couple have already said. Um, you know, Ray Davis, obviously, I think he's the best handcuff. I love James Cook, but if Cook missed time, Davis could explode. Um, so that rounds out my list. And hey, if you like Dylan Sampson, maybe if you think Judkins gets suspended, the other rookie in the Browns backfield could catch passes, maybe he, outproduces um, Jerome Ford. But one more thing, actually, I was thinking this today. I don't think this will happen, but because I still like Javonte Williams as the potential lead back for the Cowboys committee. But doesn't it kind of remind you like Javonte Williams and Jaden Blue is kind of like Zach Moss and Chase Brown. Javonte is like the Zach Moss veteran who starts off leading the way, and then Jaden Blue takes over. He's in a pass-heavy, good offense.
I
Like the
see it.
situation is similar. Doesn't mean Jaden Blue's nearly as good.
That's
It
the
just
thing. Yeah,
it's just if you want to swing at the young. But
totally.
hey, Chase Brown wasn't like that. He
True
went
that.
that high either.
True that.
Not to say I'm taking this position. I was just thinking it through. I still have Williams way higher,
Yeah.
and I'm willing to take Javonte Williams, but just something worth shouting out.
Yeah, I think Jaden Blue is absolutely the home run play in that Dallas backfield. He has crazy speed. He just needs to get that opportunity, of course, which, I mean, he doesn't have veterans in front of them who are necessarily cemented. So I see it for sure. Maybe I just don't necessarily believe in Jaden Blue, but sometimes you got to take these shots. And if you're in a lot of leagues, it doesn't hurt to necessarily diversify a little bit and try and take shots on some guys that you might not in other areas that you've seen other folks be steaming up. So my number one sleeper this entire offseason, and I've called him a 2025 sleeper probably since midway through the 2024 season, is Jalen Wright in Miami. I talked about it earlier when we were mentioning Achane. I really think that Mike McDaniel wants to have a second running back getting some significant work here. We saw it with Mostert and Achane. Mostert's obviously out the door, and Jalen Wright, despite the fact that they brought in Ollie Gordon, would seem to be the next man up for that 1B role. And I think we've seen that, like, both Achane and Mostert finished as like top 6 running backs that one year. They were both really good. I'm not predicting that for Jalen Wright, but he has a very explosive skill set. He can make a lot of big plays, kind of like Achane, except he's like 220 pounds. And so I think that could potentially give him some more goal line carries if they decide to run the ball at the goal line as well. So I am really high on Jalen Wright. I mean, really high is my running back 37 for 2025, so not massive, but I think he is going to outproduce his ADP big time. This one you're going to like, Frank, because it's from your favorite team. Nobody is talking about this guy, but he is a former top 5 running back, Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler, seemingly coming back healthy, goes as the running back 47 off the board. We know Brian Robinson isn't going to be in there catching a ton of passes. Yes, they just took Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, but I think a running back taken that late, despite some good rumblings, is still a bad bet. And so I think we should take note of Austin Eckler as being essentially free, but giving us some potential PPR value there is all I'm saying. I don't think he's going to be the echelon that he previously was, but I don't think he's going to be a net zero for anybody who has him on their roster. Another deep cut here, Frank, Elijah Mitchell from the Kansas City Chiefs. He was phenomenal replacing Christian McCaffrey the year Christian McCaffrey went down in San Francisco and Mitchell came in for him. He was so good that year, and I think this is a guy that Andy Reid could absolutely make use of. We've seen Pacheco get banged up. They have Kareem Hunt there as well. People are steaming up Rashard Smith as a good pass-catching weapon, but I don't think they're taking enough note of Elijah Mitchell as a guy who could see a bit more of a surge if he can get that trust of Andy Reid. Couple names for me there. I've kind of talked a little bit about Rachaad White and thinking that he might still get some run. I'm always a proponent of taking shots on certain backfields, right? So you take shots on the Rams backfield. We're taking shots even like the Bucs, I was saying. We're taking shots even on the Cincinnati backfield. Like now that Zach Moss is gone from there, you got Taj Brooks and Samaje Perine. We had a little conversation on Twitter on that as well, Frank, but doesn't necessarily hurt. And then another guy I really like is just DJ Giddens, to touch on some of those rookies. I think DJ Giddens is looking like he's already locked up the number 2 role over Khalil Herbert in Indianapolis behind Jonathan Taylor. And I think I've said it on this show that DJ Giddens is one of the highest end handcuffs already in the NFL. And so I would be prioritizing him if I'm a Jonathan Taylor team as well.
Yeah, and I like what you said about Eckler. Eckler's great again in best ball. Round out your running back room. Get that floor, get that production that can keep you afloat. Another one who could do that is Justice Hill. He had a few spike weeks last year. You're not going to know when it'll come, but it could come, especially in a blowout. So I like those calls, especially in best ball formats.
Love it. Okay, Frank, we're going to plant some flags in a running back for 2025. I'll kick us off this time just because I kind of already talked about the guy, and you probably already talked a little bit about yours. I have 2 that I could take here, but I am going to plant my flag in Kenneth Walker. I talked about that I'm a lot higher than consensus on him. I just think it's going to be a perfect storm for him. So for me in 2025, I'm going to plant my flag on the fact that Kenneth Walker is a top 10 running back, and he is going to be a bell cow. And we're going to be drafting him as such next year, I think.
Well, yeah, totally with you on that call. The thing with mine is, let me see. I'm trying to pick someone who I'm going to just go with, Chase Brown. We've seen today the offensive coordinator compare him to Austin Eckler. There was a quote out. And if you really think it through, like it's kind of similar. Like Eckler didn't go high in the draft. Eckler took some time to get rolling. Eckler was a good receiver out of the backfield, playing in a good offense. It could absolutely happen where, Chase Brown finishes top 5 in fantasy points per game. I have him RB8, 3 spots ahead of ADP RB11. But if we did a ranking of overall players, you would see that I'm higher than it looks like that, because I'm taking Chase Brown over a few receivers. And I think Chase Brown should be mid second rounder, maybe even early second rounder. Uh, I believe he's being a bit overlooked. So he'll be my flag plant.
I like that, Frank. And just to give a little hint to the listeners, we might be talking about some of that stuff on our other episode this week, because the next episode that we're going to have is going to be breaking down a high stakes draft on NFC that you did, Frank. So that's going to be really exciting. Final word, Frank. Final word here. And by the way, I would have been a little bit disappointed if Chase Brown wasn't your flag plant, because I've been seeing you pump him, and I thought I was pretty stoked on Chase Brown, but I would say I'm sitting shotgun on that one, and you're holding the wheel because you have been a staunch supporter. And I love that because he's a Canadian dude. So I was happy to hear you pull him out as your flag plant. What about draft strategy for the running back position overall, Frank? Because you were talking about how you really like to secure 3 within those first 3 rounds. I think what I'll throw out here as a kind of a strategy is to, if that is not possible, like if that second running back that you want to get feels a little bit reachy, it's okay, because there's a lot of really good middle round value in some of these sleepers that we talked about who have high potential. Maybe some of those rookies, if it falls to you, James Conner, DeAndre Swift types, David Montgomery, ETN types. Like, there are a lot of guys that you can get a little bit later than those top 3 rounds who can fill those holes for you. But what I will say there, being a proponent of getting multiple running backs in the first few rounds as well, you really have to nail those wide receiver picks that you take in that spot. Because if you take a little bit of a dip in the running back pool, there is obviously wider ranges of outcomes and more opportunity for guys to fail. And so I think you just need to make sure that the upside you take in those wide receivers can kind of supplement if you see some downside in the running backs you take.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, so I like to take 2 running backs in the first 3 or 4 rounds. And I just think it's back to being running back as the focal point. Last year, you look at the top 15 scores, especially like say half PPR, even full PPR, like 10 of them, 12 of them or something were running backs. And, if I don't get one in the second round, like a Chase Brown or Bucky Irving or Jonathan Taylor, I'm willing to wait and try to aim for James Cook or Kenneth Walker, like you said. And when I'm trying to make up the gap at receiver, I'm taking one of my main targets is Jackson Smith-Njigba, because I think what JSN showed in the second half is here to stay. I think he's going to dominate targets for the Seahawks in his 3rd season. They replaced DK Metcalf with Cooper Kupp. I think Cooper Kupp's on severe decline. So to that end, if you're doing this running back heavy type of approach, you want to zero in on a receivers in the 3rd or 4th round who you feel are undervalued. JSN's my round 3 guy. DJ Moore is my round 4. And the DJ Moore take is the consensus is thinking he's on decline or on the way out, where I'm taking the position that no, it's just he was held back by coaching and he's going to bounce back.
Yeah, I like that. I'll add one more name in there just to that kind of arbitrage wide receiver, and it's a little bit deeper than the guys you were talking about. Jacoby Myers with the Raiders. I think he is in line for a lot of volume, and I think he's going to surprise, as he always does. And so just look, like Frank said, look for some of those arbitrage guys who have a lot of volume. They can supplement that for sure. So very well put, Paisan. I think that was a good episode for this week. A little bit later release than we had thought. Of course, life kind of takes over, but we will get those 2 episodes in this week. So stay tuned and subscribe to that YouTube channel. Remember, our social media handles are in that episode description. And of course, we can be found on your favorite audio platforms. Frank, the audio listens aren't necessarily quite there yet, although we've seen a big spike in the video listens over the last couple of episodes. So thank you for that. Would also like to see those audio listens catch up. So wherever you like to consume your podcasts, go check us out there. And for Frank Amaranti, I am Travis Seal, and we'll see you next time. Peace.